There, in terms of first flush, this is probably to Sean and Vin mostly. In terms of when you're picking robotically, have there been any studies to look at the impact on the second flush in terms of damage to bed and so on? And what sort of, how does it compare to conventional picked crops in terms of output in flush two?
I don't know. Unfortunately, it's a bad answer, but we haven't noticed any difference in yield specifically. I think one of the challenges is we're picking white mushrooms on a ground mushroom farm with Highline. Highline's been very patient with our company. We've gone on farm lots of times and been a huge nuisance to their operations in the past and ultimately failed, and let's go back to the drawing board. So when we went to there in January, I think their expectations of us were rightfully quite low. So we were put in a farm where we're picking white mushrooms and all the other rooms are brown mushrooms. So a bit difficult to do an apples to apples comparison, but your plan is now to move into one of their white mushroom farms and go from there.
Yeah, maybe I can say also something. I think for the time being, our goal is not that we will pick all the mushrooms with the robots. I think it will be the best there when the thinning is already done and when the mushrooms are not so close together. On the other hand, we don't see so many problems because if you can reach it by the fingers, the fingers, you will see it on the movie as well, of the robot, are even smaller than the fingers of the average human being. So if you are able to reach it with the hand, you can also reach it with the fingers of the robot. We do think that it will be the best to, for example, harvest most of the mushrooms when there are not so many mushrooms on the beds anymore. So you still will need manual labor and successively, I don't know if it's a good word in English. A lot of that labor will be replaced by the robots, but for sure not 24/7 as we see it now for the time being.
Is anyone else got some questions? Tatiana? Stop.
I have a question about yield. You all were talking a lot about piece rate per minute and speed. What about yield? Have you been able to achieve higher yield comparing to conventional, traditional picking? Considering that you have a lot of data and information available.
So is that aimed at the robotics guys or the
It's for all
three?
present.
If I may start, I think that a lot of people will envy that as well. I think that we're only on the start of collecting all that big data, and that big data, that will help to improve your yields. I think for the time being, the robot itself will not improve the yield. It will improve, of course, your labor cost to reduce it. It will not bring more mushrooms, but as soon as the big data will be gathered from the system, then it will be able to even raise your yield.
Sorry, I have another question, by the way. What percentage your harvesting cost per kg has improved?
Excuse me, with what?
And what percentage your harvesting cost per kg has decreased?
Yeah, please keep in mind that for the time being, when we talk about a robot, will be implemented in a few weeks from now, so everything has to be fine-tuned, of course. Based upon the test that we did, we think that efficiency in the total mushroom farm, it will be a factor of 2.5 to 3, that the labor will be lower.
And what will the investment be higher?
For sure it will be higher, but we will make sure that it will make up for that. But I think that that's also realistic, that the investment will be higher. I think that on the other hand, when you make more systems, the investment relatively will be lower. We all know that labor costs will be higher and higher and higher, and it will not be lower again.
And did you want to make?
To answer your question, I think in many of the systems which were discussed, or a few of them, you analyze for a long time in history every mushroom, and that just generates data. For example, what we do is we show a graph of how many picks per hour a picker does over the day. and how much kilogram is the performance. We all know that towards the end of the day, there's the density of a mushroom is less, etc., etc. So it's for the first time, I think, in history that you look to every mushroom which is being harvested. And that tells you a lot more than how it used to be, that you just judge a picker on kilograms output. So that is where the trick is. And that allows you to react, to my opinion at least, more proactive. So if you see that the picker picks too small, yeah, that is recognized within 10 minutes, and the system will tell you, hey, you know, on average this picker is picking smaller than the other ones, or smaller as should be. So I think that the trick is there, that you react faster, and that might, being extremely careful, that might give you an improvement. Just so it's more the reaction time that you reduce compared to a traditional way where a person has to judge what was picked and go to the picker and say, hey, I think this was a bit too small. That might give an improvement, but I would be very careful in stating that it will. I think that's realistic.
With the machines, for a long time we had a lot of data, but we didn't do something with it. But I think it's very difficult to, when you have captured a lot of data, to bring it on the most efficient way towards the picker, because it is the picker who needs to understand why is his yield less than his neighbor. So what we did with the application you saw on the slides, with all the data, we tried to translate the data from the machine, from the yield that we see in the machines in our robots, because we already have all these data, to convert it into the application that the pickers use. So if they pick for 5 minutes, they immediately see what did they pick, what was the average pick, how many picks did they do. So I think that's the most difficult part, is if you have the data, which you need the system for, yeah, how do you bring it towards the pickers? And I think that's also why I invite you over. I think we've managed pretty well at the moment.
Really, it's our system of two different systems. We used our mobile machine personally ourselves on our own farm for quite a while, so we have quite a lot of information on that which we can share with you, but it's all dependent on your indirect costs and your direct cost of the staff, which we can put into spreadsheets and tell you exactly your saving. But typically, with a little help from Donal and support from PO funding, we can typically, for your mobile machines, like 2 years of payback. For the transfer conveyors and elevators and things, obviously it's more, but it gets back into independent, your indirect costs, and we can give you exact examples of that, depending on funding you would get from Donal and bodies as well. So we have a lot of that information, which we're happy to go through with you, it's not a problem.
Just to clarify, I don't have any funding.
Donal's full of money.
These four gentlemen and their companies know mushrooms a lot better than we do, so I think by the time their new innovation shows up, it's probably more finely tuned for your operations and ready to hit go, and because of that can do some wonderful things when it comes to yield and quality and things like that. What we can do with our robots is we can put your smartest harvester's brain in the robot. So that's going to take time from your farm, time from your operations team. And so then if you were to think, if I have my smartest harvester who has to follow the rules and they get to pick for 24 hours in a day, do we think we could theoretically get increased yield? And I believe the answer is squarely yes. You can tweak our robots to maximize yield on your farms. And quite frankly, I wouldn't recommend buying our robots unless you thought there was the yield boost that was coming from it as well. The cost savings are great, and I know the savings are only going to get higher and higher as cost of labor gets higher and higher, but really we think one of the key pieces that we need to bring to the table is the increased yield. Because that also comes with a decreased environmental intensity on the mushrooms that you're able to produce as well. If you're using the same amount of energy on farm in your rooms, you're using the same amount of compost and peat, you're creating more food. It's just one extra step we can take as an industry to maximize the amount of food that we produce with the inputs that we're using and reducing the environmental intensity of it. So I think that for us, that's critical, is that we need to be able to work with our farms to show that we are creating, a higher level of yield for them.
Okay. I actually have a question for.
Maybe I can also add one more thing, Donald. I fully agree with Sean. What we see is that will be very critical and very important is the development of the algorithms that are used for the vision system, for example, for the pointer system. What we do now, already what I explained, is that we take the best picker and we record it and we with AI transfer it to copy it to the other pickers. But besides that, we also have the algorithms behind the vision system and judge upon the size of the mushroom. What for human beings will be the same size of mushroom, the same shape, the same mushroom, what to pick. And the AI system and the algorithms can judge better. Okay, I leave this mushroom standing on the bed because in potential that will improve more than this one. And the human picker, that's much more difficult to do that, but the algorithms can do that once you learn them. So, and there, I think that will be improved in use also.
I just have a quick question for Tatiana. Just the Irish and UK market demands a very high quality mushroom. And I suppose we've seen all your systems now, and some present the mushroom very nicely, some has challenges presenting the mushrooms in punnet to a high quality standard. But what I use working on, is that your main focus? I suppose initially the return on investment is your main focus, but how are you going to get over that challenge? If for implementation into the Irish market, that needs to be factored in. I suppose, how are you going to deal with that challenge? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'll go with that next. And so I think most people here know that our second customer is Bonken in the Netherlands. And we're not deploying there until we've got our punnet solution nailed perfectly, because they really have no need for bulk boxes at this point in time, whereas Highline wanted to use the bulk boxes for a period before moving to punnets. The other piece that we've learned is, and you saw that from a few of the presentations today, even the height, if you're dropping them a small amount and the stem hits the cap below, it creates damage too. And so we've had a lot of learning over the last couple of months, where we effectively have one portion of our team, their only focus is how they can improve the end quality that we have. The trade-off that we're trying to figure out in our punnet solution is, do we want a small drop and hope that the mushrooms at the top layer end up cap up, or do we want to purposely place them with a second suction cup that comes there, and then have the double handling approach that quite a few farms don't want? So I'd say we as an industry are still trying to figure out all of these small things that can have cascading impacts on, again, 2 inches too much of a drop creates a bigger damage impact on the mushrooms. And so for us, that's critical, particularly in Europe, and there's a bit more tolerance as we look at our deployment that we're about to do in the US, where it's going to be less of a challenge. But Europe has such a high degree of quality that's required that you need to make sure that you have that nailed.
Yeah, very good question, because as I tried to explain in my presentation, to make the caps up nicely, that is costly. To just let them tumble into a punnet, that's another story there. I think that there will be a separation, more or less, into 2 types of products. The one where the presentation is perfect, and the one where we kind of hide the presentation by telling a lot of how good mushrooms are and covering it with the seal. And that is happening already. On the other side, when we started this tipping in, mushrooms, it was at Deckers with brown mushrooms, but we also did for 2-3 months test with white mushrooms. What we did is, after a shelf life test, let's say 8 days, we had an orange paper where we put all mushrooms on it, and we compared them to hand-baked mushrooms, because that's your reference. I mean, hand-baked, traditionally baked mushrooms, because that's your reference. And with browns, we didn't see any difference, and with whites, only hardly after 8 days, you could see that from the surface a slight difference. And that was, at least for us and also for Dekkers, encouraging to say, hey, we thought we would see more damages, but it was like I said, you could see from the surface, but no significant damages. And if that's the case, as I said, you could try to cover the presentation. And that's a challenge to the industry, I think, as well, like how, in what punnet do you sell it? The higher the punnet is, the less top surface you have. And that is what Dekkers in Germany is, for example, doing at the moment. They say, I have a punnet, and the person has time to just turn 2-3 mushrooms. And if I turn 2 mushrooms, and I have a fairly good presentation.
So again, we've used our machines a lot ourselves. With the quality of mushroom, with the stock trimming we have and the system we have, we can leave a beautiful cut, and we're not trying to hide anything. Now we can, if you want, put mushrooms heads up and place them into the pot, but it slows the system down and adds extra cost into it. So we've looked at this in a way the same way as Jack has. But for our system currently as it is, as we drop the mushroom into the pot, each pod is sitting on an independent suspension system, so the pod actually flexes as the mushroom drops into it, so it's not hitting a dead stop. And also, each mushroom has independent tension put onto it as it's being held, so we have done considerable shelf life testing with Dekkers and with Highline, and they actually proved that they had better shelf life quality with us rather than hand cut mushrooms, and put it down to heat transfer in the hands, and also the pressure you're putting on the mushroom as you're trimming the stock with their knife. So we have considerable data on that, and again, I'm happy to go through it with anybody.
Yeah. I don't know how it's here with your staff. I hope it's better than in Europe on the mainland. I see that a lot of customers are struggling with the people that they again and again need to bring in every time different people, and all the different people. Sometimes I think you have to stand beside them to see them throwing the mushrooms into a punnet. Because a lot of people that are dedicated in the industry, they handle them with care. But if you have every time new and new people bringing in to take care of your produce, they sometimes you see them throwing in. So I think it's also dependent on the people you have.
Well, putting the mushrooms nicely in a punnet, I think it's logical, because in the picking room you're doing everything you can to make the best mushroom you can. To 5 minutes later just drop them in a box and say I'm okay with it. It's for us, I think if you do an investment, you do it not for the next 2 to 3 years, you do it for the next 20 years. I believe if you believe in a system, just to drop it in the boxes, there are much easier solutions than what we saw today. I believe also if you invest in such a thing, in 5 to 10 years, if you see how a picking robot, how fast it improves, then I can only imagine that making the puzzle of the mushrooms in the box, and it doesn't have to cost a lot. If you make the puzzle of the mushroom in the box, that's the future. And don't hesitate about it. If you don't do it, that's not a problem. But all the other ones will do it. It's just how economics works. If you go to a cookie factory and you ask the boss, why don't you just drop the cookies broken into the box and sell them 10 cents cheaper? That's nobody is going to believe such a thing. And I think the mushroom industry will follow like this. It's also, if you invest in automating the mushrooms into the punnets, you want a machine, you take a stack of punnets, you put it in the machine, and you want to walk away to the next machine. You don't want an operator to stand next to the machine, to take an empty box, put the punnets in the box, put the box into the machine, wait until it's filled, take the box, put it on the pallet manually, take the pallet automatically away. You have to think about the big story. If you want to do your efficiency of the whole farm improved, you want to take the stacks of punnets, empty stacks, you want to put it in the machine. Once the punnet has the correct weight, the punnet has to be on conveyor belt, like we saw today, and this punnet has to be automatically to the fridge, and that's the story. No hands necessary to to make that punnet into the fridge. So for us, the multi-crates, yeah, that's in Belgium and also around the world, that's just a medium to go between the picking to the packaging. But we want to go directly to the packaging, no boxes between it.
Jack, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just for one sentence. We also don't want to replace pickers by technicians. And, because they are a little bit harder to get than pickers. That is our experience. So that was the comment I had to follow the meditation.
Okay. Tatiana?
Do you all know about your giveaway? Average per week?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
What is your giveaway per week?
I'm not going to tell you that. No, but that's a very good question, because the same as yield, the giveaway is a big challenge. It's a loss in general, you could say, to every farm. There are the fact that you judge every mushroom on diameter, possible density here at that given moment, because the density varies over the day. We all know that mushrooms on day 1 are heavier mushrooms than on day 4 or 5, and even in the morning and the afternoon they vary. So by collecting all the data of what a mushroom of a certain diameter weighs, you can create a situation that you fill up a punnet to the ideal weight. But there is one important thing to that, is that you need a buffer. If I have a punnet of 400 gram, and my target weight is 400 gram, and it's filled up to 320, I understand that I need 80, but I have to, let's say from the next 20, 30 mushrooms that arrive, I need to make the decision, mushroom 2, mushroom 8, and mushroom 17 are the numbers to get. And to do that, I need buffer. And that is where the challenge is, so to say, to reduce your giveaway further and further. It's a bit of a technical story, but in a short story, by collecting all the data, you can reduce giveaway. That's the story.
In that respect, I agree with Jacques very much. The buffer, I don't know yet, to be honest, but I can fully imagine Jacques. What we see in the test, what we did, it's only a prototype, I show you on the movie, is that already with the test, the results are way more accurate than a human being can do. And the reason is that, as Jacques said, we can determine what mushroom to put into a specific punnet that needs some weight. And a human being that might have, for example, 2 small mushrooms in one hand and drops it in one box, and that's good enough. So you can make it far more accurate when you do a dedicated mushroom, what you know the size and the weight of, to put it in a punnet. So it's already, even in testing stage, it's already performing way better than a human being can do.
I think she wants to hear numbers and not words. It's as of today, it's 1.6% of the sorting units you saw in the video, and they already have over 100 million picks as of today also. So you can write it down. That's how it works. That's how the machine, it's the optimal machine as we see it for your solution, for your problem. Also something you have to take in account of your investment, how much giveaway you want. That's the number.
For us, really, I suppose to go back to the last point, like we pick 150 ton mushrooms away. Hand-picked mushrooms, machine-picked mushrooms. Hand-picked were probably placed maybe even worse than machine-picked mushrooms, but our lorries typically traveled 200 miles. And by the time the mushrooms got to the supermarket and they hit the forklift on a pallet, there was very few sitting heads up to start with. So that's why we took the approach of the way we have, but again, we can place heads up if you want. In regards to giveaway, we've done extensive testing with Highline at the start, We have their giveaway. I can go through numbers with you, it's not a problem to start with. But the big difference is whether you're grace harvesting or whether you're harvesting all sizes of mushrooms at one time. Because if you're harvesting all your sizes at the one time, then as Jack said, you can utilise smaller mushroom in a punnet. If your market allows you, over here I would say you would difficulty putting a 30mm mushroom in with a 60mm mushroom in the same punnet. But again, that's down to your customer specification. But if you're grace harvesting and you're putting 50 to 55mm mushrooms in every punnet, there's no choice with giveaway. The only way you can do it is if you maximise your stock length and you get away with one less mushroom.
So Tatjana, I think you know as better as anybody else that it's related to the size of mushroom and the punnet size. The smaller the punnet is, the bigger the mushroom is, the bigger challenge is to reduce your giveaway. So to give a fixed number for a farm is not possible, to my opinion. That's my opinion. So once again, it's related to your end product. A small punnet, we all know, has a bigger giveaway than a larger punnet or crate, percent-wise. And especially related to the size of product which is in.
We have for us, we're weighing to plus or minus 1% in the box today on farm, and we've proven that over and over and over again. With the punnets, we think we can do to plus or minus 2%, and so effectively it'll be up to the farm on what they want to do with that knowledge on plus or minus 2%. So do they want to go directly down the line, and so we always want you right at this level, knowing that it could be plus or minus 2% either direction, or they want to go slightly lower to play with their risk tolerance, depending on if they have to comply to e-weight legislation or somewhere else. So we can say what our robots will do, and ultimately the farm will decide what their risk tolerance is for how they want to set those weight capacities.
Okay, thank you. We'll just take one final question, and then we can actually catch up later. So, Alan, do you want to fire away your hand up?
I have two questions for Sean. Sorry, Sean, where are you on the journey moving to punnets? You obviously saw the 2 or 3 kilo cardboard tray. Where are you on that? And then is there a sort of an optimum square meters of shelf space per one robot, roughly? As in, is it panning out at a certain square meters per robot?
Yeah, so a robot can handle about 100 square meters, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 100 square meters in the room today, then again optimized to be, if that room is no longer harvesting, you take them out, pop them in another room, tell them to handle 100 square meters in that room. And so what we're trying to see is we look at some of the larger farms, so we go to 40 meter rooms. Can we do 2 robots on each side for the first flush and maybe 1 for the second and third? Or is it 2 for the first and the second flush and then 1 for the third? So there's going to be some learning as we go into larger farms on how you move the robots from room to room to maximize how often they're working. And on the punnet solutions, we have 2 different prototypes that we're working through right now. We effectively have, this sounds more competitive than it actually is. We have 2 different solutions and different teams, and ultimately one's going to win. One is punnets within the current footprint of the box. So we can weigh the box really accurately today. We know where the mushroom goes in the box, so into which punnet, and then we can weigh the punnets from there. The challenge we're facing there, although we think we can overcome it, is you're no longer putting 10 pounds of mushrooms into a box or into a crate. You're putting a lot less than that based on the size of the punnets, meaning more box exchanges, which slows down our pick rate. That's the piece that we're trying to figure out on that side. The second one is a punnet solution that effectively has stacks of punnets that you denest directly on the robot, and so you can put in whatever punnet sizes you want. You can tell the robots to pick all into one specific size, and then you'd have one for your kind of quality or value pack. But those are the 2 solutions that we're building, and both will be live this summer. I'll say I believe it's going to be the second one is the more effective piece. It allows you to have more variety for what you're picking and placing the mushrooms into. You can have multiple different punnet sizes or different mushroom sizes, so more qualified mushrooms per scan, which will increase our pick rate, but we're going through the process of implementing both right now at our facilities, and then we'll have one deployed by the end of the summer at Highline.
Okay, just one final question, and everyone can catch up with the speakers afterwards. There's tea and coffee in the canteen. So, Stefan.
Thank you very much. So in the opening address, we heard that the biggest challenge for the industry seems to be labor cost. And what I feel like we're hearing a lot here is about robotics and how the robot can solve the problem eventually, maybe. But with a robot, you're in fact in one step trying to replace the brains and the hands of the picker. So you're removing the picker altogether. And I think this is one element that makes a lot of people in the industry uncomfortable because it's a very big step. And I'm just wondering if there isn't an intermediate step that is not really being addressed. In two of your presentations, we saw colored dots on the mushrooms. And you know, I'm from a company called Microsense, and we built a very small AI-powered pointer that is the brains that has AI, but that tells a human picker what to pick. And we feel that the right solution for the industry is maybe a first step in equipping the picker with an AI helper. And you still have the picker that's able to walk themselves in and out of the room, that's able to undertake different tasks in the farms, not just picking, but that is also using AI to improve the picker's performance and improve the overall yield in the farm. I'm wondering if overall all of the key players in the industry should be thinking a little bit more as well in terms of helping increase the yields that human pickers can achieve before replacing the pickers altogether with robots.
Donald, can I add to that, just what that man's saying there? And Sean, it is very good the way AI is going. You're gathering a lot of data, but long term of this picker is going to be developed over the next 10 years plus. Someday it's going to do without us, and that might, excuse my French, but the elbow of the arm will come around and give us a whack someday and say, fuck off you. And that's where I can see it going, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And no, and it's no disrespect to you, the way your robotics, I think it's fantastic.
That's great. I went from trying to help the industry to the asshole is going to be the downfall of the industry.
Spot the paddy.
Look, I think the industry is going to change with robots. So to answer your first question, we're all in on the future being robots. I think what you guys are doing is awesome. Makes a ton of sense, and it looks like you're doing some really killer stuff with optimizing people being better. So we're going in a different direction. Totally understand why the industry would want people to be better. I think we've heard a lot of tech nerds like me come and say our robots are going to be great, and then we kind of go away and go bankrupt in a couple of years. And you guys have seen that over and over and over again. Our robots are working. You know, it's just on one farm. We still have lots to learn, but they are picking 100% of the mushrooms today. But you are right. The future is different in terms of what this could look like over time. If we can see every single mushroom in your farm and know the growth rate of those mushrooms and are tapped into your, whether it's FanCom or something else you're using to communicate the data of the temperature growing, can we then optimize what your ordering volume is going to look like in the future too? So I don't think the value and the power of the mushroom farm ever goes away. I think it gives you guys, quite frankly, I think more power when you're talking with your end customers, because you're going to have a full scope of what your order volume should look like in the future. Look, we can't do any of that today, but we do know every single mushroom that our robots are in the room on, the size of them and how quickly they're growing. Again, we are one small part of the equation, and we need farms who can work with us to help optimize using our robots. But I think it'll change the industry in a pretty big way. The farmer's not going anywhere though. If anything, I think it just creates more value and power for you guys to be able to predict the future ordering perspectives.
I want to add one thing to it, and in a hidden way it's discussed today, what Stefan said. And Wim mentioned it, how much output you have per person. There is a farm in Germany of Pilsland, which made their own packing solution. and it's running very efficient. It means that till the moment the punnet is put into a crate into the fridge, the average 62 kilogram per person working on that farm. Involved in picking and bringing punnets, etc., etc. So what happened, and it's also to your point, is that the competition of the robot changed. Where 5 or 6 years ago, there was traditional picking with one hand, and now you get to a kind of a standard where people pick with 2 hands and they perform 2.5 times bigger. So that is to Stefan pointed, and you know, I mentioned the concept of 4-egg and the way I really admire. The fact is that the competition changed. If I have a picker costing 18 euros, picking 62 kilograms, it's very difficult, you know, for a robot cost-wise to compete with it. Sorry, shouldn't use that word. It's more difficult to compete with that than with competing with whatever 28 or 30 kilograms an hour.
Well, Stefan, I think that you would like to know that our system that will work with 2 vision systems instead of 1 only. And the one will be used to determine what mushrooms will be picked by the robot. And beside that, there will be a second vision system, and that will determine what mushrooms should be picked at what time by the human beings. So it will be a combination of that. And as I already explained there, I think for the time being, the 100% picking of the mushrooms, that will not happen for the robot. So it will be, in our point of view, a combined system. And it will improve that vision system, it will improve the efficiency of the pickers. Fully convinced about it.
To come a little bit back about the question, we are from DLT, we are fully convinced that you should always have a plan B. If the sorting unit doesn't work, you can just turn on the switch to let the pick conveyor run. If the picking robot cannot work, you have always the platform, all the facilities that you used before to continue picking. The picking never stops. We saw it enough. It's even if the system fails, you should always have a plan B. And I think that's the biggest concern about automating in the mushroom industry. Yes, but what if it fails? Well, if it fails, then you have this plan. If this one fails, then you have the second option. So we really try to have a fully solution for all these kind of problems. And a long time I believed that it was never possible to have a picking robot picking all the mushrooms, but I am more and more convinced that maybe there will be a robot sooner or later who can pick most of the mushrooms, and maybe all of them. But still, like you said before, you will always need a plan B if you are so if you really have to. If the whole yield of the farm is depending on that type of robot, you are not that strong. So that's the reason why we believe with our system that you have it all. You can still pick it by hand. You can still use the sorting machine. You can even improve to a picking robot on the platform, which is fully designed for it. There is already a rail implemented on the platform for an external machine, also a visual machine who can help the picker who's on the platform. So we believe, in short, it's all prepared for it, but it's not necessary to go further.
So really we tried to do exactly what you were saying. In 92, that's where Dad started. He started with a robot, and by 96 we were picking mushrooms every 3.5 seconds with it. But back then there was no such thing as the vision systems. We needed 10 feet to scan on the bed, and due to our time constraints earlier, we couldn't go into that. But with those vision systems now in place and AI now in place, it makes things on site easier than it used to be. But we tried to mechanize the actual harvester and increase their speeds. And we brought them up by 2.5 times what they were actually harvesting. So now, as Jack pointed to, if you add a robot to our system, there's a lot less scale for it to add into. But you have the option of harvesting 24 hours a day, which is a big plus. Now, whether it's our robot you add to our system or someone else's robot you add to our system, we will even give you the flexibility for that, so that you have those options.